Freed Taliban hostage Timothy Weeks has spoken publicly for the first time since his ordeal ended earlier this month and his return to Australia on Thursday night. The teacher says his life was in danger every day of his 3.5 years in captivity. Mr Weeks and his American colleague Kevin King were part of a prisoner swap deal that saw 3 Taliban prisoners freed by the Afghan government. He spoke to the media a short time ago.
On the 7th of August 2016, 4 heavily armed Taliban suicide soldiers abducted my colleague, Kevin King, and I as we were returning home from our nighttime classes at the American University of Afghanistan in Kabul. And life as I had known it ceased to exist. Over the next 3.5 years, Kevin and I were held and moved around various locations in Afghanistan and Pakistan, our lives at risk on a daily basis and at the mercy of our captors. Then, after almost 1,200 days, our ordeal ended as abruptly as it had begun, and a Black Hawk helicopter lifted me from the parched soils of Afghanistan. Firstly, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all those who worked on the long and complex process that led to our final release. Those involved came from many nations: Afghanistan, America, Australia, Pakistan, Qatar, and they worked diligently to secure our release. There are so many people I need to thank. The Australian and Americans who worked in unison, supported by their teams of experts. I would like to thank Prime Minister Scott Morrison, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, President of Afghanistan, Ashraf Ghani, President of Pakistan, Imran Khan, US Special Envoy, Zalmay Khalilzad, and the Australian Minister for Foreign Affairs, Maurice Payne. From the moment I sighted both Black Hawk helicopters and was placed in the hands of special forces, I knew my long and torturous ordeal had come to an end. In particular, I would like to thank the SEER Psychology Unit, a highly professional team whose support and guidance were with me every step of the way. Some of those I would like to thank individually are my on-the-ground liaison from DFAT, who was with me right from Bagram Air Force Base, Trudy McGowan, the family investigation and liaison officers from the Australian Federal Police, the SEER psychologists, those at Bagram in Afghanistan, and Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Bass in Germany, the American Armed Forces, the Landstyle doctors, Dr. Brian Cohey and Major Nat Voyer, and the incredible nursing team who were there with me, and the Australian Ambassador to Germany, Lynette Wood. Particularly all those people who sent messages of comfort and support to my family and friends, and those who made public pleas for our safe return and for our lives. The leader of the Taliban, Hibatullah Akhundzada, and my Taliban guards. I would like to ask the press to respect my father's privacy, as this has taken a great toll on his health. I would also like to thank my family and friends, and in particular my 3 mothers and my father. As a result of this exchange, the peace talks between America, the Taliban, and finally the Afghan government have resumed again. This brings great joy to me. And obviously, those who have suffered needlessly throughout the 20 years of violence, I pray that they will be successful and that they may enable the return of stability and security to the country of Afghanistan and the region. The time that I spent as a hostage with the Taliban has had a profound and unimaginable effect on me. I struggle to find words to express just how completely this has changed me. At times I felt as if my death was imminent and that I would never return to see those that I loved again. But by the will of God, I am here I am alive and I am safe and I am free. There's nothing else in the world that I need. Thank you. I didn't allow myself to hope. I had hope all the time. I never ever gave up hope, and I think in that sort of situation, that if you give up hope, there is very little left for you. So yeah, I had hope the whole time. I knew that I would leave that place eventually. Just took a little longer than I expected. For the majority of time, I was treated as well as could be expected under the conditions I was under. We were kept in very remote locations. We had no access to proper medical treatment. At times, food was not a lot of variety on the menu, and I think also because we're in such tiny cells, there were no windows. There were, at times we spent long periods in the dark. That was quite difficult. But again, depending on the guards and the commanders, that dictated how we were treated.
You said you feared for your life literally every day.
Yes.
One day
On the 9th of April 2019, we were woken in the morning at around 2 a.m. and we were taken down into the tunnels. And we were told by our guards that it was Daesh. And I've since learned that I believe now that it was the Navy SEALs coming in to get us. And the moment that we got into the tunnels, we were just 1 or 2 meters underground. There was a huge bang at the front door. And that was whomever coming in, who we thought was Daesh at the time. And then our guards went up and there was a lot of machine gun fire. And they pushed me over the top into the tunnels and I fell down backwards and rolled and knocked myself out unconscious. So at that point I was fairly fearful, but I think the fear often comes later than at the time because this wonderful thing of shock that our body has.
What was that? Do you know what it was? Was it the SEALs trying to get...
I believe it was the Navy SEALs who were right outside our door. So I believe, and I hope that this is correct, that they came in 6 times to try and get us, and that a number of times they missed us only by hours.
Did that antagonise or make the Taliban captors furious?
No, they never respond. They told us that it was Daesh, and so I suppose they couldn't respond to that. And there is no greater enemy to Daesh than the Taliban. I mean, they would often speak about their great disrespect for them. And one of the greatest pieces of news that I had when I came out, that al-Baghdadi and his cult had been, attacked and he had been killed. So I was very happy to hear that. As I said, I never thought that it wasn't going to happen, but it did take a little bit of time. But when I finally touched down in Australia, I think I was too exhausted for any feelings. And, we had been flying from Frankfurt, and then we stopped in Dubai for a short time and then on again to the flight, and I didn't have much sleep along the way. So by the time I arrived, I just wanted to see them and tell them how much I love them, and then I needed to sleep. Yeah, well, it was very emotional, and it was also, being in a room with so many people that I loved, it was a little overwhelming. So, of course, what do you say? I have to thank them. I have to put my arms around them. I have to tell them how much I love them and how much I miss them. So that was...
What's your feeling towards your captors, the Taliban? Do you feel about the people that locked you up for so long?
I only interacted on a personal basis with the guards and sometimes some of the commanders. So... I know a lot of people don't admit this, but for me they were soldiers, and soldiers obey the commands of their commanders. They don't get a choice. So they were there because they were ordered to come and look after me. I don't hate them at all, and some of them I have great respect for and great love for almost. Some of them were so compassionate and such lovely, lovely people, and it really led me to think about, how did they end up like this? What has happened? And it's quite obvious that when you persecute and isolate a people, no matter what they have done, never builds to trust, and the only way that this situation is going to be resolved if there is a trusting relationship formed and negotiations go forward, and finally there can be some sort of ceasefire in Afghanistan.
Did that give you hope?
Yes. Yes. I feel a lot stronger now. I came back and I was saying to my family, if I've gone through this, I can do anything. It's given me a great sense of hope and a great sense of confidence. And there are so many things that I want to do in the future, so I'm hoping to be able to draw from my experiences to support me. I've made plans, or I'm in the middle of making plans to return to study, so I'd like to spend maybe the next 2 years. But in the immediate future, I'm going to, when I finish doing all of this and the various administrative tasks of being able to register myself as a human again in the electronic world, I'm going to take a holiday. I went to teach in Kabul because I saw it as a wonderful opportunity. And also my grandmother, Florence Weeks, when I was growing up, she had a Persian carpet on the wall, and she used to tell me stories about this carpet, and it was always my dream to go to Afghanistan. And when I finally got there, I only spent 3 weeks there. It was quite short, but I would have worked for an Australian university, Canadian, anything. It was more education for me and having that opportunity to travel to the country. This was given to me by the psychologist, the SEER psychologist, and it stands for, hold on, I always have to make sure I get this correct. Where did we put it, Joe? Search, escape, recovery, and extract. And then they put my name, like my nickname, on the back. So I was overwhelmed by the compassion that the American soldiers showed me. Everyone wanted to speak to me. Everyone wanted to give me the badges from their units. When I first arrived, I didn't have a jumper, and one of them gave me like his personal jumper, like the kindness and that this is what you get from the people on the ground in those difficult circumstances. And it was, I cannot thank them enough for what they did to me.
Can you tell us about it?
We were taken out in the morning and we were driven to the location where they handed us over. And the Taliban all changed out of their civilian clothes into military uniforms, into khaki fatigues. And we stood around for a while and they took some video of us, and they gave us, some of the guards gave me hugs and said, this is your recovery, you're going home to see your family. And I had a very good relationship with some of them, and I learnt Pashto, so I spoke with them. And then finally they got the intel that the helicopters were coming in, and so we had 2 soldiers flanking either of us, and we stood there, and then I saw them flying across perfectly parallel and at the exact same distance the whole time, and that was, they're such professionals. And they landed away from where the Taliban actually wanted them to land, because they had cameras and everything set up. So, and then the guards or the soldiers walked us towards, and out of a big dust cloud came, I think it was 6 special forces, and they walked towards us, and then one of them stepped towards me and he just put his arm around me and he held me and he said, "Are you okay?" And then he walked me back to the Black Hawk, and the rotors are really loud. And until then, I'd spent 3 years hiding underground every time I heard these helicopters. So it was difficult to walk under them, but I knew it was the only way out. So I just held on to him and I did it. I called one in the early hours of this morning just to check about whether I was allowed to say their names or not. And I'm in contact with them, and all of them have given me their contact numbers for follow-up at any time, so which has been it was really wonderful of them as well.
And your captor, the other person
Yes, I haven't spoken to Kevin yet. He's still undergoing treatment, so I'm going to respect his privacy. As you know, he was 60, he was taken 2 weeks before his 60th birthday, so, and he was, the effects on him have been a little, he needs to spend a little longer in the hospital than I did.
I mean in respect to see a movie this time of series.
I've already been offered a few things, but I think it will be a long time before I get round to that.